What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pitt mailbag here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. We are your Pitt beat writers here for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Noah Hiles and Chris Carter, who's dancing.
I'm dancing.
What are you dancing about? You excited?
I'm
You happy?
dancing.
What's going on, buddy?
I'm excited. I'm dancing because I'm going to get to see a team go dancing when Pitt volleyball plays on Friday. So that's going to be tight. Can't wait to cover those young women. They've had a great several seasons.
Yeah.
It's another one. I hope that they do a lot of dancing in this upcoming tournament.
Carter, they're not the only team that's dancing. Pitt soccer as well in the Elite Eight for the third straight season. Beat the number one team in the country, Kentucky, who is unbeaten.
Yeah.
And we'll have coverage for both of them this weekend. Actually, we'll start off the mailbag now. Sam asks, and this is a great question, who makes it further in its respective tournament? Pitt men's soccer or Pitt women's volleyball? And I'd like to preface this, Sam, by saying, I mean, Pitt men's soccer is already in the Elite Eight. So they've made it pretty tough, far. Yeah. But, I mean, you look at it, like Pitt volleyball made it to the Final Four last year. And it's a 2 seed, and it's going to be home for its first 2 matches, if not more. So I'll let you answer that one, Carter. What do you think? Do you think, I'll just let you answer the question.
No. It's tough because, again, they're already in the Elite Eight. Any team can slip up at any time, and they just took out the number one team in the country. But I'm going to go Pitt volleyball because nothing against the Pitt soccer guys. I think that they're doing a great job. But Pitt volleyball, like, they've been here before. And just in my experience.
So is Pitt soccer. They've been in the Elite Eight 3 straight years.
I hear you. But, like, they were just in the Final Four. And I think Pitt volleyball also feels slighted because they were the ranked number 4 team in the country in 2 out of the 3 polls, and they got a 2 seed. And so they're like, no, we deserve to be a 1 seed. We deserve to have our own bracket, and they didn't get that. So they're gonna ride up. They're in the Wisconsin quarter. I think that this is a chance for them to prove a lot of things. I'm not going to pretend like I've studied all the teams in volleyball in the country. We've been covering football and basketball so much this year, but I did get to catch a couple of their games last year on TV. This year, I would keep tabs on them as well. One thing that comes across is this team plays team volleyball very well. There's a lot of teams out there that's led by one player who's scoring a lot of the strikes, who's getting a lot of the aces or getting a lot of points. Pitt doesn't have too many of those. They have some really good middle blockers, but what they've done so well this year is their high assist rates. They are up there with assists per set in among the best in the country because they play really good team volleyball under Coach Dan Fisher. Very impressed by that. I think that's what carries them against a lot of tough teams this year.
What was that?
What do you mean, what was that?
That was so... I was just expecting a yes or a no thing. I mean, that was so well said. I'm not going to lie and say I put that much work into the volleyball analysis. I mean, I knew I've actually written about them, and, I've talked to Coach Fisher a couple of times, and I have watched their matches, but, I mean, I don't know the stats like that. But I'm going to take a cop-out answer here because I actually do feel like this is what's going to happen. I think both make it to the Final Four.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, because I do think Pitt soccer wins Saturday against Portland. Just it's a home match. Portland's coming all the way across the country.
I didn't consider that. I was more so speaking on the confidence I have in Pitt volleyball this year. But I think that's the safe answer. I think both make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, and I mean, and at that point, who knows what happens in the national semifinal? But
never know.
Portland coming across the country to play in the Eastern time zone at 1 p.m. That's what, like 9 a.m. their time?
Yeah.
Against, Pitt at home. Like, that's a tough match for Portland. I really like the Panthers' chances on Monday. They're playing really confident soccer right now. And again, I mean, just look at the teams they beat. They beat Akron on the road for the first time since 1965. Akron, for those who don't know, is like one of the best soccer programs year in, year out in the country. So they beat the Zips 3-0 on the road. They beat Kentucky on the road, the number 1 seed in the entire bracket. I mean, there's no reason to think that Pitt soccer can't go all the way this year, and the same thing can be said about Pitt volleyball. I mean, they're just getting better and better every season. They were in the Final Four last year. They added some big players in the transfer portal who have been really looking good for them, and I don't know, it's fun. It's fun to, as the primary responsibilities of this job are obviously to cover football and basketball, which we'll definitely be talking about. But it's really cool to provide some shine and to even get to cover these other sports who are playing so well and, deserve that coverage. So going to be a fun weekend here in Pittsburgh, just seeing, all the stuff going on. So we'll go back to football now. Got a couple questions about that. Nathan wants to know, what's the word on SirVocea Dennis and his NFL future? It seems promising. Nathan, I will agree. I don't know if SirVocea Dennis is going to the NFL this year. This is just speculation. I asked him about it Saturday night after Miami. He said we will know soon, which I would think would be this week sometime. And if I had to guess, again, no inside information here, just guessing, based upon how dedicated he is to this team, this program, the fact that he didn't walk on senior night and didn't partake in any senior day activities, I wouldn't be shocked to see SirVocea Dennis come back next year. And some of the questions I asked him Saturday evening, I asked about, because he said he wasn't going to come, or he wasn't going to give an answer on other stuff. So I would just kind of say, like, well, building this program moving forward, what do you think you guys can achieve next year? And, the fact that he's putting thought into what the program can achieve next year, maybe that's something, who knows? But I don't know what his NFL draft stock is like, because I don't personally think he's going to be in the NFL next year. I think he's going to be a Pitt. What do you think, Carter?
I think that here's the thing. I do have some sources that have said to me that he's been approached, not by like NFL team, but like there's some serious conversations going on about, dude, you could go to the NFL right now, be a solid day 2 pick if you were, if he posts a really good 40 time or really good shuttle time, has a good broad jump, there's going to be teams that are going to all over him because he's smart, he's confident, he's
great in pass coverage.
Great. I mean, you saw the interception he had
on
Saturday night. Noah, you were there. People love that about him, and he steps up in big games too. So like, I can see him going, and I'm not saying that he's definitely, but I can see him being like, you know what, I don't need to risk any more years of injury. I can go there. But here's where I think that your side of this carries weight as far as him sticking around. He can look back to 2 years to last year when Kenny Pickett stayed, when Kenny Pickett could have gone to the NFL, and now he's a first round pick playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers Monday Night Football. But he could look into that and say, you know what? A lot of these guys in the secondary are coming back. We finally got in tune with Solomon DeShields and Bagali Kamara. You got guys that the defensive front still looks like it's going to be good. Maybe the pass game figures itself out. Maybe Pitt it can still be really good next year, and I can be the face of that. And if I'm the face of that, maybe that puts me into day 1 of the NFL draft or earlier in day 2. And if you get up there, the higher you are picked, the better salary you start to get, the better chances you get for a team to invest in you long term. And I think that SirVocea Dennis, he's a smart guy. We talk to him all the time. He's one of the most educated guys that you will ever talk to in the game of football, not just about football, but about life. That guy is thinking long term. I think that he's healthy. And also the other thing I'll say about this, my last point here, Noah, this guy's passionate. Noah, how many times have you seen him spaz off at the other team when they were started doing
many?
He was just, I'm not taking that stuff. I like SirVocea Dennis's fire. And to me, that's a guy, he don't want to walk away from it. He wants Pitt to go out on top while he's there. And I think that he's looking at this and saying, you know what? I think some of this might depend on other guys, Keaton Slovis, Jared Wayne, those type of guys. But if it seems like enough of the other guys are bought in on next year, he'll be back.
I guess my one counter would be like, I don't know how much better of a year he's capable of having.
Very true.
He had no. I think. I mean, I voted Sunday on the All-ACC awards. He was the first linebacker I picked. I think he was the best linebacker in the ACC, and I would not be surprised to see him get some honor All-American recognition as well. There are a lot of good linebackers in college football, but I mean, he, as far as especially middle linebackers go, he had a fantastic year, like in pass coverage. And I know we're talking a lot on this point, but when I was writing the Eric Hallett story that ran last week, I was going back and listening to old audio, and there was a question you asked Randy Bates. I think it was maybe the Louisville week or the North Carolina week, and you asked him about covering why shoot when teams would run that, and he said ever since we moved SirVocea to the middle, why shoot for the people who don't know is when the inside receiver or tight end normally goes up the middle. And he said ever since we put SirVocea in the middle, we've never had a problem with teams running that against us. And it just goes to show, how big of a help he is to defenses. And I think he would be ready for the next level. But again, I'm not sure if he wants to go to the next level yet. we'll move forward now because we've talked a lot about SirVocea Dennis. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about him later, regardless on what decision he and many others make. But on the note of accolades, Hunter wants to know, how many Pitt players do you think will receive All-ACC recognition this year? Will any be All-Americans? Hunter, I think one for sure is for All-Americans. Kalijah Cansey, he was my vote for ACC Defensive Player of the Year. If you're looking at first-team honorees, I think Izzy's a lock. The conference's leading rusher should be the first-team All-ACC running back. I think Pitt will probably have at least one offensive lineman because alone, I took the time, I took a couple days to look at PFF grades. I looked at, just other metrics and everything and just seeing how they stack up and, running before yards before contact, all that kind of stuff. I think I had Marcus Minor on my first team ballot for Pitt as my only offensive lineman on the first team ballot, but I also threw in Jake Cradle.
Cradle deserves
I threw him a vote, but it was tough to pick him for what position because he played center and
that's
guard.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I threw him a second team guard vote because NC State has a really good center. But I think Cradle deserves some recognition. Jared Wayne deserves some recognition on a second team ballot,
absolutely.
I think. And then on the defensive side of the ball, like we said, Cansey, first team. I think SirVocea should be first team. And then, there's some guys in the Pitt secondary who I think deserve a little bit of love. I think Marquez. Who is that? Is that EJ calling to promote some more names for Pitt football?
He's mad. He's watching us right now, and he's mad that we're not talking about all the players.
All right, no, but I think Marquez Williams had a really good year. Marquez Williams. I think MJ Devonshire was a solid corner who might get some honorable mention recognition as a defensive back and probably first team honors as a returner. And I think both safeties, Brandon Hill and Eric Hallett, have a chance to get any hardware. Chris, have I leaving anyone out?
Desmond Alexander.
Okay. Yeah, he was also on my ballot. I think I voted for him third team defense. So
0.61 sacks per game was 10th best in the ACC this year. I think he gets – I'm not saying first team. He at least makes honorable mention, might make third team. Yeah. I really like it. And plus, I think that a lot of people are going to notice all the good that Desmond Alexander did in raising money for the kids of Haiti with his fifth down campaign. I think that he's stepped up in big ways. He's been a leader for Pitt's defense. But like you said, Kalijah Cansey. That's the thing. That's how many guys that we're talking. Kalijah Cansey, Desmond Alexander, SirVocea Dennis, MJ Devonshire, Marquez Williams, Brandon Hill, Eric Hallett, Izzy Abanaconda, Marcus Minor, Jared Wayne, and Jake Cradle. That's a lot of Pitt names. That's a lot of Pitt players, getting 8 All-ACC honors. And Jared Wayne, for the record, finished with the second highest yards per game average in the conference, only behind Josh Downs of UNC, who was the only guy standing up to Jordan Addison in the ACC numbers-wise last year. So, Jared did pretty good.
Jared had a fantastic year.
Yeah.
I just – and this can kind of piggyback on the next point. Just seeing all those names – especially on the defensive side of the ball, it really goes to show how talented Pitt was this fall.
Yep.
Which begs the question here. Quentin wants to know, based on how these three teams have played in November, do you think Pitt could beat North Carolina and Clemson right now? Well, not together, no. If you combine North Carolina and Clemson, I don't know if any team in the country could beat them.
Powers combined.
But I do think that right now Pitt is playing much better football than North Carolina. North Carolina just lost to Georgia Tech, which I know Pitt lost to, and it lost to NC State as well. And I just think that maybe their best football was played in October, which happens.
Yeah.
Clemson I don't know. Clemson lost to South Carolina, who's just the Kingslayer right now for good teams that wear orange. So I don't know if Pitt can maybe beat Clemson. I think Pitt's capable of beating both, yes, but I do think that there are a lot of Pitt football players who will be watching Saturday's ACC championship and thinking we should be playing Clemson right now. And they deserve to think that because I think, North Carolina has the best football player in the ACC, the best quarterback, I think. He was my vote for player of the year with Drake May. But I think Pitt is a better football team than North Carolina. And I don't think I'm out of line saying that. Even though North Carolina won, and they deserved to win. They were better that game.
Yep.
But
I think right now,
the way Pitt's playing right now, Pitt's a better football team than North Carolina.
And I'm right with you there because also, you look back at that game, Pitt had them where they wanted them. They were up.
They were winning in the fourth quarter.
In the fourth quarter, controlling the game. Drake May ran to the sideline. SirVocea Dennis just took a little too aggressive of an angle. If SirVocea Dennis plays it safe on that play, tackles him, it's a turnover on downs, Pitt ball up 10. I think the momentum does not swing in North Carolina's favor. They might even win that game. And if they win that game, what are we talking about right now with the ACC championship? So, and again, like you said, North Carolina outplayed them. They deserve that win, absolutely. But if we're talking about right now how these teams are looking, Noah, I've said all year long, and you can back me up on this because you were there in the booth when I said it. I was like, when Clemson was battling with those teams early, I'm like, every Pitt fan should want Clemson to win out so that they are definitely the team that they face.
Yeah.
NC, all the other Wake Forest, all those other teams, Clemson plays the style of football that Pitt is meant to be. DJ Uiagalelei is not a good quarterback. He has not been working out. He's been wildly inconsistent. And the times when he is consistent, he's bad. So I think that right now, the biggest thing that if Pitt looks at it, they're going to look at that game, and I think you're going to see a sloppy game from Clemson's offense. I think you're going to see a not sharp game from UNC, and it's going to come down to which I think it's going to come down to Clemson's defense making enough plays to control the game and not let UNC run the score up, and I think that's why Clemson wins. I'm picking Clemson to win this game, but that being said, Drake May could go off at any point in time. But I do agree with you. Pitt's going to be, and I think this is going to be something that digs into SirVocea, maybe with his decision, looking around like, man, like we could take these guys, like we could do this. We got enough guys coming back. We can make this happen. And I think that, yes, they could have beaten both of those teams the way they're playing right now.
Another thing to mention about that North Carolina game, of course, Kalijah Cansey didn't play in the second half.
Very true.
If it has him, maybe that game goes differently.
Maybe.
Pat Narduzzi certainly seems to think. I would argue that maybe having the ball in Pitt territory every offensive snap it took in the fourth quarter would help Drake May and company, but nonetheless. But on the note of Kalijah Cansey, Aaron says Saturday's performance was proof. It was Saturday's performance proof that Pitt's defensive line will be fine next year without Cansey and Haba. First things first, we don't know if Cansey and Haba are gone. I would think it's safe to assume Cansey's gone for sure.
I think that's a safe one. Haba, I don't know yet.
Haba, I'm not convinced because, again, like I said, what more could SirVocea Dennis achieve? Like we've said it on this mailbag a million times now. Like Haba is one of the few that has a lot to gain.
I think
by coming back for an extra senior year or whatever you want to call it. So by using his COVID year, I guess. So, but we'll just assume they both leave. I do think there's so much talent on that defensive line that they're going to be good regardless of who's back. If John Morgan can go, Deslin's already going to be gone. Cansey will be gone, and Haba can go. But, I mean, just looking at Deion Hayes, 3 sacks against Miami was a beast Saturday. Sean Fitzsimmons, Elliott Donald. There's so many more. Nate Temple's a guy we haven't seen at all this year because he's injured, but they're really high on him. I mean,
no,
Charlie has a machine built, man.
He has 2020, so 3 seasons ago or 2 seasons ago, I guess, whatever. You know what I mean. But 2 seasons ago, Pitt Jalen Twyman went to the NFL draft. Patrick Jones and Rashad Weaver. Everyone thought rebuild, defensive line. It's gonna take time. And Kalijah Cansey came up. Then Haba Baldonado was healthy. Then Desmond Alexander improved. And then John Morgan stepped up. And then they were just – and it's just they have a system. Charlie Partridge is the best defensive line coach in the country. He just – and none of these guys are 5 stars. None of these guys are the guys that the guys who put the smoke in their high school reveals of which hat they're going to put on. And they're dancing with their boys on Instagram Live. And not to besmudge anybody who does that enjoy your day.
Fun. Yeah.
Have your fun. But I'm saying these aren't those guys. These are the 3 stars, the 4 stars that are like, or some of them even 2 stars. And it's like, you know what? Like, hey, I'm picking Pitt because I want to play football like that. Now, they got another guy. And I think you see, they led the country in sacks this year. You got a guy coming in another year, Josier Whittington, the kid from the Philadelphia area. Now, he's a 4-star. He's a kid that I think he wants to improve to a 5-star next year with his play. I think the bottom line is this program churns out talent, especially on the defensive front. Like you named all the names. I said going into this season, I think Deion Hayes could be special. I think he had injuries and he had some off the field things that kind of derailed him a little bit. But you saw in that last game, him getting after the quarterback. he's ready. I saw in the spring practices this year, Haba Baldonado pushing him because when Deion Hayes was like, nah, man, I ain't feeling this. And Haba would get in his face and he would have to straighten up. And I can tell you from what I've heard, Deion has taken a lot of that to heart. He's been more consistent. He's taken his job a lot seriously, and that's why he's a better player. I do think Pitt – I'm not saying they're going to have all the answers and they're going to have another All-American defensive tackle like Kalijah Cansey, but collectively, they're still going to be a force in the ACC.
I just fantasize about next year Pitt having Hayes, Fitzsimmons, Danielson, and
also, did you see that live when he was doing it?
Yeah, hang on. I want to make one more point.
Danielson,
and then who was the last one?
Fitzsimmons.
No, Fitzsimmons.
Donald.
Yeah, that's 4 Pittsburgh kids up front on the.
That's wild.
Line. Yeah,
that's
right.
Wild.
That would be so cool. 3 Whitfield guys and a city league team kid. Yeah. So that would be sweet. But no, I didn't see that live.
City League guy a kid, huh? Why you gotta put us down like that?
He is a kid, yeah. I mean, they're all.
But you called the other guys guys.
All right, he's a guy. Whatever. Deion Hayes is a really good football player. How's that? Go Westinghouse.
You go.
Or go Steel Valley. I just want to. I mean, guaranteed to have one team from the area in the state championship.
That would be nice.
But yeah, the Danielson thing, real quick. No, I did not see that live. When it happened, my phone blew up by everyone who seemed to know that I cover Pitt and was at the game. They're like, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "Why would I have seen that? Why would I have been looking on the sidelines at Devin Danielson of all times when they're winning 42-16? I don't know why he did that, but
I don't know either.
I talked to SirVocea and he just said, "No, that happens all the time." I even talked to Devin. I talked to Devin after the game, and he said, "That's not the first time that's happened." I was like, "Oh, okay." I saw him when he was getting his little to-go meal after he showered and was heading to the bus. I'm like, "Devin." He's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "You all right?" And he's like, "What?" I'm like,
he didn't even know. He was just
like, you hit your face 4 times with a helmet. And he was like, "Oh yeah, that happens all the time."
I love the bench reaction of they were just like, "Oh."
No, and so after he said that, it really made something stand out in that video. The bench reaction obviously is the best part. But if you look, Deslin's trying to take his helmet from him. Because he knows what's happening.
It's coming. He knows
it's coming. So it does reinforce everything that's been said. It's like, no, that wasn't just a first time thing. They're like, yeah, he does it all the time. Because Deslin was like, please don't do the helmet thing, probably. That's clearly what was happening there, which was so funny.
I can just see Devin, please. Come on, man. Not on national television.
No, come on, man. We're winning 42-16. We don't.
You're right. You don't need to smash your head in your helmet.
And he just wanted to do it so bad. It looked like Tyler Wiltz tried to talk him out of it in the beginning. He's like, "No, I'm gonna go smash my face." And Deslin tried to stop him. And he was like, "Get off of me!" And he goes and does it.
Hey, man, he's a heck of a player. I think if it's an intimidation factor, I think everyone's gonna be like, I'm not messing with him next year.
He's a Thomas Jefferson guy, isn't he? Is that what
he is a TJ guy.
Chirpeck, man. He raises some tough guys. All right. Final question. Julius wants to know, what's the deal? What's the deal with Pitt basketball in the first half? I read that like Jerry Seinfeld. What's the deal with but the wins are nice, but why does it take 20 minutes for them to get on the same page? Julius, that's a good question. I will say that, and Carter, I'm going to let you answer this a lot more lengthy than I am, but all I'll say is, they're still figuring out a way to win the game, which is big. And the second half was their kryptonite against West Virginia and Michigan. Mm-hmm. Their 2 toughest tests so far. So, we're recording this. I'm in the hotel in Evanston right before the Northwestern game. So we'll see how that goes. But regardless of the result, I do think that Pitt needs to just be more consistent in both the first and second half. Carter, what's your analysis?
I asked this very question. So they're playing who they wasn't Fairleigh Dickinson. Who was the last team that
William and Mary?
William and Mary. So they're playing William and Mary. I'm covering it Friday night, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking they're getting outplayed. They're getting out hustled, outplayed, out everything in the first half. And I'm just like, this is embarrassing. But I was sitting here and I'm tweeting. I'm like, they're about to go on a second half run because they've done it the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. And when they came out, I wasn't shocked. I was like, they're better than this team. They know that they're better than this team. They just got to start doing the right things. And in the entire first half, there was a backdoor cut that just kept getting open. And I'm like, how don't they see this? In the second half, they saw it and they cut it off. And so we get through talking to the players. I asked the first question to Jeff Capel. I was like, Jeff, do you got any secret stuff that y'all take at halftime? He was like, I wish. And he knew it was coming. He just started laughing. He's like, man, I wish I knew. Because he's like, he doesn't get it. He's like, listen, like the stuff that they were doing, we prepared for. He was talking about how Pitt was like, we studied this. We went over this. It wasn't clicking. We made one switch and then everything clicked off of that. And it is bizarre to me that these guys are struggling in the first half. But like you said, this team's still figuring out how to play together, and they found a way to cobble together, these wins. And I know people are like, well, they're just William and Mary and Fairleigh Dickinson. Yes, absolutely. But last year, they were losing to UMBC and the Citadel. And these were games that they didn't come back from. So I do think that if this group can figure it out over time, and we've seen them figure it out mid-game, if they can figure it out before a game, maybe they will be able to click, and maybe they can be a competitive basketball team in the ACC. I'm not saying they're definitely going to be, but I think part of it is just communicating, getting on the same page, and understanding each other and how to play together in certain situations. You saw the defense and the offense rise in the second halves. We just got to see if Pitt basketball can, start to put it together, because now you're running out of those non-Power 5 teams that you can beat up on.
No, yeah, I mean, the schedule gets so much harder from here on out. I mean, starting on Monday night's result, whatever that might be. I mean, then their first ACC contest is after that, and then they go down to Nashville next week to play Vanderbilt, and then there's a couple of lighter games, but you're playing Syracuse on the 20th and North Carolina on New Year's Eve, and it's the night before New Year's Eve. But still, it's only going to get more difficult. So you can't. Your easy wins are about over. Your easy win opportunities. It's time to start playing 40 minutes of basketball. And again, we'll see what happens Monday night. We'll see what happens Friday night. But it will be definitely fun to cover. Chris, any final words as we wrap this up?
Just Pitt fans, I think that there's, and I might have said this last week, but I want to reemphasize this again. I was on the Final Word with Doug Whaley a week ago, Pitt alum and former NFL GM. He said this then, and it stands even truer now. He's like, Pitt fans who are very frustrated with Pat Narduzzi because this wasn't another ACC championship season. He's gotten 5 8-win seasons in the last 8 years, and this seems a lot like when Jamie Dixon was the head coach of Pitt basketball. And because they couldn't get to the Final Four, people wanted him gone, and then you saw where Pitt basketball fell. I think that Pat Narduzzi is doing a fine job getting talent in there. Are there things that he can correct? Absolutely. I've talked about it a lot in our articles and on this show. But there's always going to be criticisms. There's always going to be problems with programs. The bottom line is these guys want to play. They're 11-1 in the last 3 Novembers. And you can't say that this 4-0 November was about Kenny Pickett. This was about team play. They were resilient this year. I think that there should be confidence. They have a chance of getting a 9-win season with whatever bowl game that they get. And if they get that, it'll be their first span of 2 years where they got 20 wins since the Jackie Sherrill days. This is a really good time for Pitt football, despite the setback of not being ACC Coastal champions for a second year in a row, let alone ACC champions. Yeah, I think that this isn't even a hang in there. This is guys, look around. This is actually a lot better of a situation than most people would have given Pitt credit for a few years ago.
22-9 in November during his time here at Pitt, Pat Narduzzi. That includes wins over Clemson in 2016 when they were number 2, and Pitt, or over Miami at home in 2017 when they were number 2. Mm-hmm. Great football by the Panthers in the month of November. They definitely know how to finish strong. You got to give Pat Narduzzi props for that. Well, that's all we got. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Follow us on social media and send us more questions. We'll be back here doing this every Monday when we record, and you can read and watch it Tuesday or afterward. Either way, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.